Hi, it's Papa again. Today I'd like to read for you the last part of the story about the signal. Remember, Alex, a man from Moose Factory, had left the island to go across the Moose River to his hunting camp just before breakup of the ice, which meant he had to stay at the camp for a few days. As I was walking to church, I saw a fire over in that direction, and I wondered what it was. As we finish the story today, we'll find out about the fire. Isolated fires were fought only if there was potential danger to towns or individual dwellings. Fires that presented no danger were allowed to burn out. More than once, while flying over the bush in northern Ontario during the summer, I had seen the smoke of a distant fire. In a country full of marshes, lakes, and rivers, few of the isolated fires grew to any size. Once a fire had passed through an area, blueberries, raspberries, and other small ground plants thrived, providing forage for moose and treats for any passing bear. Nature, full of paradox, produced the destructive force of a forest fire that could stimulate new life. Knowing that there was no chance of the fire spreading across the river, I watched the smoke out of curiosity. At regular intervals, the gray smoke billowed thicker and higher, only to die down for a while and billow again. I could see the fire was not growing, but burning in one place. There were no flames visible across the river, just masses of smoke. Just as I was about to go into the house, a helicopter passed overhead, flying toward the fire. The helicopter hovered for a moment after reaching the opposite bank and then landed near the fire. I could not tell if it landed on the ice or on the bank. As I watched, it took off again, flying back to the island. I went inside and called the police to find out what was happening. The fire had been a signal. The smoke had been seen by others who called the authorities. A signal meant an emergency, so a helicopter was dispatched from Moosonee. Someone had been brought into the hospital, but the police did not have a name. Small towns have wireless, non-electric communication systems that rival any high-tech equipment. Without asking, without even leaving the house or using the telephone, I was told that Alex had built the fire and had been brought back to the island. A young man who was delivering something for his mother in preparation for a meeting that evening had all the news except for what was wrong with Alex. Out of concern, I called the hospital, but was told that Alex had been discharged after a brief examination. He was fine. The hospital worker did not know why Alex had been brought back to the village. My curiosity about the fire had been satisfied. Surprised to find out about Alex, I was happy to know that he was all right. But I decided to drop by his house the next day to find out why he needed to get back to the village. Alex lived in a section of the island where non-status native people and status people from other towns lived. These people could not get land on the reserve because they were not part of the Moose Factory band. Traditionally, they had lived around the Hudson's Bay Post and the church. A mass of tents and cabins placed randomly in the center section of the island had slowly turned into a confusing maze of small, single-story homes of a more permanent nature. By the time I arrived on the island, dirt roads had been built in an attempt to bring order and infrastructure to the homes. The roads had no names, but were identified by the name of the most prominent citizen living on that road. Because prominence is a relative thing, many roads were identified differently by different people. It was important to know everyone on every road, or directions could become quite obtuse. Alex lived on a road that I called Ferris Road. His house was small and square with faded red shiplap siding. His yard was surrounded by a small picket fence that had one time been white. The gate was gone. There was a second opening in the fence to accommodate a short gravel driveway that pointed from the road to a tiny garage exactly matching the house. Alex was in his yard stacking firewood. It was a beautiful day for a visit outside. "What's here?" he said, looking up and smiling. "What's here?" I responded. "It's a beautiful day. I thought I could take a nice walk and drop by for a visit at the same time. How's the camp?" "Miloshin." It was good. Alex continued to stack wood. "But I'm back now. I came back yesterday." "I heard that you built the smoke and came back by helicopter yesterday." Now, I was curious about what happened, but afraid to ask Alex because he wouldn't want to talk about his trip home. He alleviated my concern. "You saw it?" "I think everyone saw it," I laughed. "Are you okay, Alex? Are you sick?" "I'm fine, me," he said with a Moose Factory twang. "Why did you need a helicopter? What was the fire for if you were okay?" I thought this might be too direct. Folks on the island had spent a great deal of time talking around important subjects, working up to the point of the conversation. "That fire was hard to light. The kindling and wood went up good, but the boughs were wet and wouldn't catch." Alex was talking about the fire, but skirting the subject. "I had to let the boughs dry over the fire for almost an hour before I got any smoke." I realized that this must have been what I saw on the way to the church. "Yeah, I thought I saw campfire smoke when I was walking to the church." Campfire smoke. That's not enough smoke," Alex explained. "Without green boughs, but until they catch, they only break up the smoke so you can't see it. We used to do that working in the bush as boys." Still avoiding my question, he offered an interesting piece of history. "At school in Shaplow, we cut firewood every day. We was boys and didn't like to work and didn't like the cold, so we built fires under the spruce trees and stood around them. The smoke broke up going through the trees, so no one at school knew what we was doing. Ever silly, I say." Although I made a mental note to talk more about school at another time, I pressed on to satisfy my curiosity. "Why did you need to get back to the island in such a hurry? What was the emergency?" I had a number of suspicions about the emergency, but not wanting to prolong the preparatory conversation, I didn't ask anything further. "The Leafs was playing, and my radio died. Now, that's an emergency." He laughed his staccato laugh, and we talked some more. I hope you've enjoyed this story about Alex. Our next chapter is called The Feast. If you're interested in owning a copy of One Man's Mile, the book from which all of these chapters come, you can go to fishingluremart.com and buy your own copy. I hope you have a great day, and remember, love one another.